For those of you who don't know, we got to send 9 of our young people to a youth camp this week. You! Yeah, it was such an awesome week away, and so I'm going to get our young people up to share a little bit on that. The theme of our camp this year was Get Ready. So we were looking at Ephesians 6, the armor of God, and we looked at each piece of armor, really going through what that meant to each of us. And yeah, God did some awesome things. So I just wanted to start off by reading in Ephesians 6 about the armor of God. Here we go, verse 13 to 17. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you can be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand, stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So we had a full week talking about the armor of God, talking about getting ready, asking our young ones if they were willing, if they were prepared, and if they were ready to take on that armor in the battle that we all go through. So I'm going to invite up our juniors that went on camp. So Kathy and Caitlin, they're going to lead the way, being the youngest of the lot. And let's hear what they have to say. So girls, come up, take a seat on the couch. Beautiful. So first up, so the younger guys, they got to have a bit of a different experience. They had a lot more like activities and stuff, which, you know, me leading the senior group, I was like, oh, but you know, it was okay. So just first up to break the ice a little, what was your favorite activity that you did? You can grab the mic.
Okay. My favorite activity was probably high ropes because I didn't actually want to go, but it was Tim and Quinnell that made me actually go because Tim was the one that was like, oh, I'll be right in front of you and I'll lead the way. And Quinnell was like, oh, I'll go and I'll show you how to do all of it and I'll be on the ground helping you. So they were a huge encouragement for that.
So good. So good.
I did not like high ropes. I don't know what my favorite activity was. I think the 2 main ones we did, I didn't like because they were very high.
Fair enough.
I think I probably liked the Survivor thing we did. That was really fun.
Yeah.
Mainly because it was on the ground.
That's so good. Bring it back to the same points, and I love it. Consistency. So good. Okay. Now, to go deeper, it's pretty much the question that I'll be asking each of our young people in reflection of the whole of camp, which, you know, a lot happened. What was one experience or one learning that you had from camp that stands out? Or it might be 1 or 2, because there's a lot. But yeah, share with us a little on that. Yeah, Kathy.
Probably the one that had me bawling my eyes out was worship. So, like, on the first day, I felt so out of place. I felt so young because this was my first Uprising. And, like, I didn't expect for all these emotions on the second day because worship was just so overwhelming and powerful. And all these feelings, Georgia was telling me, they were all heightened. But really, I think that it really made me like peaceful when we went out because like from all like the things that were happening inside, and then there's such a difference from like worshiping the presence of God and then actually being in the presence of God. There's such a difference because you feel peace inside and you feel like you want to stay in that moment. So the best part of like worship and all was the soak-in session because I just felt like I just wanted to stay in that moment forever. Yeah.
What was the question again?
So, what was one experience from camp or one thing that you learned that stood out?
I think when we were doing high ropes, it was like, I think like when Maddie was just like pulling me through the course, literally pulling me through the course. No, like she grabbed the harness and was just like slowly pulling me through. Yeah, I just felt the Spirit of God speak through her to me. Mm.
What did he speak to you in that moment?
He was telling me to be calm, don't be afraid, face my fears.
So good. And I know we were all so proud that you got up there and did that. So good job. Even though you were scared, you still did it. Well, girls, I'm so, I'm thankful to God for everything that he did within you guys over camp. And so thanks for sharing just a little bit of that. But I'll let you guys sit down. You can chill, breathe. Very good. So next I'm going to invite the seniors up. So we've got Lucas, Annalise, Ruby, and Will. Woohoo! Okay. Yeah, you got to, yep, that's right.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go straight in with you guys. I want to hear your testimony from camp. What did God do within you? What's changed? What have you learned? Talk to us a little bit about it. Ruby, you've got the mic, so I guess you're going to go first.
I have to go first. Well, basically the first 2 days, I was kind of not feeling it. The first night, I was in a really weird mood, and I wasn't worshiping, and I wasn't doing any of that. And then the last song, I was hey, maybe I should sing, And then I sang, and then after that, I was all right, what's next? Let's go do the giant swing, because I'm pumped. And then the next day, it was still kind of I was still kind of off a bit, and I was I started doing I started writing more things in my notebook and whatnot, and then I had a moment at during the night session, and I thought that was going to take over the whole camp, and I was laying in my bed, and I was this camp is going to be the worst camp ever. I'm just going to be so upset for the rest of the time. And then the first thing I did the next morning, I opened my Bible and I started reading John 6, and it's I was this is so cool. It was the book, the part where he walks on water and the part where he feeds the 5,000. I was that's so cool. He's our God, and he's also our friend. So it's so cool. And I had so much energy that day. I was I was chilling. And then for the rest of the camp, I was living it up. So that's God. That was all God. It was I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
Yeah. God is so good, just transforming you and your attitude even in camp. Because as a witness, I can see you got so much from that, from pushing through that breakthrough. So yeah, he's good. He's a good God. Yeah. Okay, Annalise.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Uprising was my first church camp, and I hadn't been on one before, ever, and it was I didn't really know what to expect from it. I knew I was going there, and I knew I was gonna hopefully experience God there, but I didn't really, fully understand what I was in for, really. And I remember knowing that I had been holding on to a lot of things. You know, I'm a big planner. I plan out everything, you know. I think I've had my uni planned out since I was like 10. It's still my top uni, I will say. And yeah, and I know that I hold on to those plans because I enjoy doing it, and I really, really like don't like having my plans messed up, and I hold on to them. And on the first day, similar to Ruby, I wasn't really getting into worship. I was kind of like, oh, everyone's looking at me. I don't want to put my hands up or like all of that. I was kind of like very conscious of what I was doing and, you know, like all of that, instead of truly soaking into God's presence, which was so evident on that night. And during the second night, before we had worship on the second night, I was in a small group of people, and we were sharing our favorite Bible verses, right? And it came to my turn, and I was gonna say a different verse, and something I just thought of the verse, Jeremiah 29:11, which is, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I was like, wait a minute, is this God speaking to me? Yeah, and I was sitting with that verse for a long time, and when worship came on the second night, I was able to just really let go of what I had been holding on to, let go of all the plans that I had created, because ultimately God's plans for my life are better than I could ever imagine, you know. I can't even fathom the depths of the plans that he has for me, you know, their plans to prosper me, you know. So I was sitting with that, and I was like, oh, God's really speaking to me. And I had never really heard his voice like that deeply, that strongly before that. And on the last day of camp, that morning, the main person was talking about being available and, you know, being prepared and getting ready to spread God's word. And the last slide that he put up was Jeremiah 29:11, and I was just like, okay, God, I get it. Yeah. So that was God speaking to me through that camp.
So good. God is so good. That's all I have to say when I hear all of these testimonies. It's like, God is just so good. Yeah. Okay. Now, Lucas.
I don't even know where to start. So, like these two, it's like my first uprising, and I guess I didn't really know what to expect either. So, I went in and I was just like going through with what the leaders were guiding us into. And I guess I've worshipped here a few times. This is my first church. It's like I've only come here a few times, so worshipping is so new to me. So like I grew up listening to other music that like influences your mind wrongly. So like getting into worship and stuff, it was like a whole different feel. It's like I'm doing this for God. I'm not really talking about anyone or anything else. So I guess jumping straight into worship was very powerful. It like gave me a glimpse into what I was in for. And all the energy from everyone around me, it's like you don't really get that, like where I was coming from. So, you know, just all those good influences, people recognizing you, you know, seeing you for who you are. It's like you get to be free, like your chains are finally taken off. So you run wild like an animal. And yeah, like my favorite activity for Uprising was definitely the high ropes. Because I remember, like, I was so confident going up, like, right before it was my turn. I was like, you know, I'm being led by God right now. There's no way I'm going to, like, fall or anything. So I had that in mind, watching everyone go across. They were going through their challenges and stuff. I was like, yeah, I got this. So as I was climbing up, I'm like, yeah, this is cool. Halfway through, I'm like, okay, we're getting pretty high. And then I get to the top, and I have to pull myself up over the ledge, and I'm like, oh, okay, this was, because I felt like I could have fallen back. Even though I knew I was safe, I still had that feeling that, you know, what if I fell? But I still went. I just kept moving forward. I get through the course swiftly, jumping over every obstacle. It was amazing. And it really just shows you, like, when you know you're in the hands of someone who's going to take care of you, you can just, like, do anything and be safe. But, you know, in the right spirit. But, yeah, nah, on the second night, we were doing a worship session. And it was like saying, I forgot exactly what the song was, but it was like, I'm here and I'm available. And as I kept repeating that, it's like a certain part of me was awakening, like down here. It felt like there was a lot of pain and tension. And then this part started speaking the song. It was like, I'm here, like I'm available. Like, and I just, in my mind, I'm like, God, you know, you can do your construction on me. Like, and as Josh Ferris was playing the cajon, I was imagining that was God knocking at my door. And I was like, God, bro, just like come in, you know, the door's unlocked. And as I felt that pain down here, I felt it spreading, and it felt like my body was getting really tense. And then I had to take a breather. I went to the back of the room to sit by myself. And in my head, I was just like, God, I want someone to come and pray for me, but I don't want to ask for it. And then I just kept like thinking to myself, like what I've been through, like why I was there was because I was chasing God's love, but I was chasing for it in the wrong places. Like I was, you know, looking through people, trying to get that love from God, but from them. Because you'd get that love in the moment, and you don't really, like some people, they don't get the unconditional love, you know, growing up. So, you know, you look everywhere else for it. And I guess being in that space and finally getting that love, it's like I was having a field day. Like I was like, you know, it feels uncomfortable, but like I know it's God, so I'm in good hands. And as I was feeling like my body got stiff, I wanted to sit at the back, and I was thinking, I'm like, God, I just want someone to walk this earth with and who follows you at the same time. So I can be in love and spread your love just around us. You know, we can have a sanctuary. And then I was thinking, because I said someone, but I had a thought that was like, that can't be God because God's not a person. But then I thought again, nah, bro, you said someone. God's the one. And then I was like, okay, show me. And then one of the TOPS leaders came and just placed his hand on my shoulder. And he's like, hey, bro, can I pray for you? And that was like, right before that, I was getting all these tingles up my back. And I was like, wow, like this is God's presence right now. And he just started reading this verse. I forget like exactly what he was reading because it was so like, I was so in awe. But he was basically reading about Mary. She had to do something and her sister didn't do an equal part. And she felt it was unfair. And she was asking God, like why didn't she have to do anything? And then God was basically saying, like, just be patient, like your time will come. And with that, he just set me off. And then I just started breaking down. I was like, God, break me down, break my walls. And I just started crying. And all these emotions that I've been longing for to come out were finally just coming out. And God was just like, it was like someone was hugging me, just like, it's going to be okay, you know. And I felt a breath on the back of my neck. Like I started getting hot and my back was sweaty. And someone blew air on the back of my neck, but no one was behind me. I was like, okay, that's God. So yeah, that was my experience.
Of course, I have to follow up on those, all of those.
You'll be right, Will. Yeah. I think, you know, this is the encouraging thing. Like, no matter how big the breakthrough is or how little it is, right? Like, God still has done something. Like, you know, no matter how big it is, right? Yeah.
Honestly, I don't really. I see Uprising and Drastic a little more as a social camp. Honestly, I do get stuff out of the message. Like there was one message in particular that had me hooked. I'll let you all youth leaders duke it out over who it was. Hey. Hey. But I see it a little more as a social camp, and I see it a little more as, okay, all of you guys are together. we're taking all the distractions away. You have 4 days. And I try to see God a little more in those instances like that, like just sitting at night talking with Lucas and my other roommates, or the last night where there was like 10 of us playing Just Dance, stuff like that. Or in all those light and deeper instances, you can sort of see God in pretty much anything.
Yeah, I love that, like, even the TOPS people, right, is like, they make sure that every single activity that we do that is linked to, like, something scriptural, right? So it's not just you're doing this thing for fun. It's like, okay, you're walking into this high ropes thing and, like, you know, like, I mean, I think the older guys, you guys had to set it all up, right? And then it was, like, even just, like, figuring out all the outworking of, like, what actually goes into making this happen, and then being able to, on the second day, like, go and experience it and, like, be led through of, like, knowing, like, the plans of what was there before. It's like, yeah, got to, like, practice outworking, you know, that trust in God's plans, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
pretty
good.
much.
Yeah, pretty much. So good. Awesome. Okay, well, yeah, so awesome, guys. I'm just, yeah, so happy that you all got to come along and experience all of that. And I guess, like, this is the thing, is we can go on youth camps, and I know I've been there as well as a youth, but going on camps, just, like, going to experience God's presence, but, like, walking out of it, probably changed for a bit, but then falling back into, you know, my old ways, and then thinking that I need a camp to, you know, re-spark this flame, right? But God's Spirit is still here and around us at all times for us to access. So I wanted to, before I invite the leaders up to share their experience, I was wondering if our leaders could come up, and maybe some other people as well, along with everyone who went, if we can just pray over all of these things that, like, happened within the camp, just so, like, we can seal them in, right? Because, you know, the battle that we've been, you know, talking about all week, like, it starts as soon as we get out of that space, right? So I might just have you guys stand, like, here. And then are the youth who came along? Yeah. The youth who came along, come in. On the floor? Yeah, on the floor. Yep. So good. And then leaders, if I can get you up. Yeah. Thank you. So good. Tim, can I get you to pray over all of us?
Lord, I want to thank you for just giving us breath into our lungs every day to be able to experience you and experience your presence. I want to thank you for these youth that were able to come into this camp, Lord. Thank you that they are so beloved and so valued to you, Lord, that they have such a special place in your heart. Thank you that they were able to come to this camp and experience your presence, maybe some for the first time, maybe some for a number of times, but thank you that you were able to see them where they were at and to just really love on them, Lord. Lord, I want to thank you for their testimonies, that each one of them is important, that they are so valuable, Lord, to you. Just want to thank you for your presence, and thank you as a leader, Lord, that we were able to walk with them, that we were able to grow with them, and that we were able to, also experience your love and, just to be a part of this process. I pray for this in your name. Amen.
Perfect. Thank you. Guys can go and sit down. Yep. Okay. So these are a few of the leaders that went in camp, and obviously it's a different experience, right, being a leader to a kid. A lot more tiring, like, you know, you two are getting sick, and Sarah, who went on camp, she's, like, fully out of it, which is so normal, like, leading on a camp, coming back, just being absolutely exhausted, but it's also so worth it. So I just wanted to get you guys to hear a bit of, like, that leader's experience on camp. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be able to do that and to be in that space and ministering to those young people. And like as much as the kids got out of it as well, like we all got a lot out of it too. And I know personally I was so encouraged by our young people and all of the leaders there as well. So yeah, first up, ladies leading the way. Jordan.
Hello?
Yep, there you go. It is on. I don't even know where to start. I think even just like sitting and hearing the testimonies, I think I've heard quite a few already at camp on the last day. The kids got to sort of get up and share a bit of their testimonies just with everyone, and there's just so much power in that. And I hope all of you guys know that it is so powerful and it's so amazing. Camp was crazy. I don't think you did camp well enough if you didn't leave sick. I think Tim and I can both attest to that. And even the fact that Tim and I are both here today, yesterday we were both saying we're like the enemy's just trying to stop us from being able to get here and share the good word that God did in that camp by keeping us sick. So we were praying a lot yesterday that we will both be well enough to be here. So even that in itself is just amazing. I think on the first night, I just had sort of a vision from God, and it was just like one white person just standing surrounded by just a bunch of like black just surrounding it. And I just felt that God was really speaking in that a lot of the times in our lives and in our situations, we are just the one white person. We are the one person that can bring God to all of the people around us. And I just felt Ezekiel 37, which is the valley of dry bones. And it said, the Lord took hold of me, and I was carried away by the Spirit of the Lord to a valley filled with bones. He led me all among the bones covered in the valley floor. They were scattered everywhere across the ground that were completely dried out. Then he asked me, Son of man, can these bones become living people again? O sovereign Lord, I replied, you alone know the answer to that. He said, speak a prophetic message to these bones and say, dry bones, listen to the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am going to put breath into you and make you live again. I will put flesh and muscles on you and cover you with skin. I will put breath into you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am Lord. And then it just sort of then goes on to say that the person then speaks that message and the bones come to life. And I think it is just such a great, I just feel like God was just sort of telling me in that moment that we need to be the ones when we put on our armor to then go out and share God's word and share God's love. And I think every person left that camp just so filled. And I just had so many people by the end of it just telling me that they can't wait to go back and tell their friends about all that they heard and tell their friends like all of this different stuff. And like everyone was leaving just with so much joy. And I'm sure that everybody that you've even spoken to in the last couple of days can see that. And it's just, yeah, just such a testimony in itself, just getting to see how much God moved in these kids and just then getting to watch them share that. Because once you're filled as much as these kids were, there is no way that the people around you aren't seeing that change and aren't seeing that difference. And it's just, yeah, it was so awesome. And I think just for everybody as well, during one of the workshops, it was how we can share God's love in our schools. And one of the things they said, they were talking about self-worth and how just because, you know, you might not want to do something, our worth doesn't come from feeling demoted by doing something for others. It comes from God, and it's not about our self-worth. It's about our worth in general, and our worth comes from God. And I feel like that's just on everyone can just take so much. And even that hit me, and I was like, wow, that's so true. Like there's so many times where I don't want to do something for somebody because it's just going to inconvenience me, or I just feel like it's not, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be their slave. I'm not doing that, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But that's not what it's about. It's about getting our worth from God. And in that, those moments are where we see him the most. So I just encourage everybody to, just go live out that message. I'm sure our young people definitely will be. And so just an encouragement for everybody to, I guess, join in with them in doing that. Yeah.
That's amazing, Joe. I think for me, I guess I didn't do camp right because I wasn't sick. No, but camp was amazing for me also. I think for me, my role on the camp was to sort of be a overlay leader for the first-time leaders coming into the camp, sort of giving them, knowledge, how to sort of be a leader in that. And it had its ups and downs. Ups was that it was a very, I guess, honoring experience to be able to sow into these kids, but also it was a little bit sad because I wasn't being able to be in small groups with, the youth kids I actually wanted to be there for. But God places us where we need to be in those moments. For me, I think one of the coming into the camp, I think one of the things that God was really sort of praying into me and sort of moved my heart into was just a heart of, I guess, renewal and into that. For a bit, I found kind of not hard to read the Bible, but it was an essence of trying to make it pure in the fact that I was always, for the last probably say a couple of months, I was reading a Bible with an agenda of being like, well, I've had people tell me, well, my faith is wrong because I don't follow these certain rules or something like that. I'm not doing that. So every time I'd open up the Bible, my heart would just be, how do I read this Bible and how do I prove them wrong? And I was sort of convicted on that because I was like, well, no, I don't want to be reading the Bible just as a viewpoint of being like, well, how am I doing this? But more of a coming back to the essence of pureness and just being like, well, no, I want to read this because I want to learn your heart, God, and more of that. And going for the camp on the third night, I was just sort of praying into that, and the camp director came up to me, and he just talked to me, and he gave me this analogy of just being like, well, in Jeremiah where he goes to the potter's house, and the potter is making the clay, and there's this little bit of air bubble that bursts, and then the potter has to remake the clay in his hands, and the camp director said to me, well, that's you're the clay, and God is wanting just to remake you in his image. And he also gave the analogy of being like, well, with the shield and the armor of God is that, the shield is there to defend you from outgoing attacks. And he said to me, but even sometimes, we need to remake the shield. We need to we need to relay, we need to remake it. And he encouraged me, just to go back into the start of the word. Go back into the word without any, idea of it. Just start pure and read from there. And I think coming out of that was one of the things that I really got out of the camp, was just being able to, sort of come back to the heart of it, which is not an agenda or anything, but it's just worshiping God and seeing what God wanted for my life. And that was for me. But also I think as a leader, one of the encouragements was just sort of seeing the kids, especially the kids, grow in their faith. I think coming into the camp, all of us leaders were really excited to see what God was doing in our hearts. And I'll tell you guys now, because I know some of these kids didn't say it, but there was just every night when they were doing the worship, these kids were out in the front, they were moshing, in the middle, they were just praising, they were just praising God. And it's such an encouragement, even for us leaders who are older and in our faith, but it's just an encouragement to see these guys, who have such childlike faith, get up there and just praise and praise. And especially, I know Quinnell didn't come up, but I know Quinnell had such an amazing story, and just seeing her just get up and, really just praise, worship, and really respond well to a lot of the messages, as did the rest of the kids. It was such an encouragement for, I guess, I as a leader also. So that was it for me.
I'm so sorry if I sound really bad. I am currently recovering of 2 days and being in bed and just coughing all day. I'm Tim. If you've never met me before, I know I'm quite new to this church. I was the one that went in front of Kathy on the high ropes, and I can tell you I was like this, right? I was like, come on, Kathy, come on, you got this, you got this, you got this. And I'm like, come on, Kathy, you got this, you got this. And I was freaking out so much. I've been a camper on those camps since I was 6. I've been to so many of those camps, and I'm like, I've done the high ropes before. This is easy. And I got up there, I'm like, oh no, what did I get myself into? But I was able to have a really good time, actually, with Kathy. We got to the last activity on the high ropes, and it was this long beam that was not even as wide as my foot. It was so skinny, and you had this one rope that you had to hold on to. You had to walk the whole way. And, just as much as Kathy was scared, I was freaking out. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? And I'm like, how is she meant to do this? If I can't do this, how is she going to do this? But then I was like, you know what? In our life, when we get scared and we get put down like that, what's the one thing we should do? And I'm like, hey, Kathy, can we just pray before we do this? And as I said to her before she came up, I'm like, God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but he gave us one of courage. And I just prayed that over us. And in fact, we both smashed it. We absolutely smashed it. It was just so good. But I think at the start of the camp, my highlight was probably about 2 months before we did the camp. I was just driving on my way to work, and God was just like, pray for Uprising. And I'm like, that's random, but sure. And I did. And he gave me breakthrough. He said that there's going to be breakthrough at this camp. And I'm like, so good. Like, I can't wait to see this. But I had no idea what that looked like. And we got into our small groups, and I was with a bunch of boys. And on the very first day, we're asking get to know questions, trying to get to know them better. And we're like, all right, what's your names? Dead silence. We're like, what's your favorite ice cream? Just dead silence. And I'm like, cool. So this is what the week's going to look like. Sweet. And then we did our first activity. We did like a survivor thing. I got to talk to a couple of the boys, so it was pretty all right. And then we got into this, all the kids can attest. I think this is the best part of camp. We did bubble soccer. And I was talking to one of my friends, Dan. He was also one of the leaders. And we're like, why don't we just do this as like a bonding experience? We said to all the boys, we rounded up all the boys and we said, look, me and Dan, we're going to run at each other as hard as we can to just get the biggest hit we can. But I'm like, you guys, don't even worry about the ball. Just worry about sending it and just hitting each other. And literally the whole time, we probably spent about 10 minutes on that pitch. We just pumped each other and pumped and pumped. And yeah, literally, like we were just smashing each other. And I think like straight afterwards, right, like we got out of the bubbles, we're laughing and stuff, and one of the boys yells, he goes, I love bonding, this is so good. And I'm like, yes, come on. And some of them were a part of our friends, her name's Nairi, part of her youth group, and they're from Jarvis Bay, so they're quite far away. But she's like, Tim, I need you to like really sow into these boys. Like these guys rock up to church, they sit up the back, they don't do anything, they don't listen, and then they just leave. And I'm like, okay, we'll pray into it and stuff. And by the second night, I remember just just praising the Lord and being like, okay, God, like I want to see your breakthrough. I want to see your breakthrough. And I opened my eyes, and these boys who were so quiet at the start of the camp were now on their knees with their hands in the air, worshiping. Later in the night, they had their arms around each other, like jumping for joy and praying for each other. And then by the end of the week, like on the last day, we're just like doing our recap, being like this and this and this. And I'll be like, all right, Will, what do you think? Boom, just like this wisdom just hit them, and they were just speaking. Every single one of them had such an awesome answer, and they were speaking full of life and joy. And I'm like, where was this like 3 days ago? Like, that's crazy. And just to see them, like, even the boys from Jarvis Bay were like, we're actually so happy to go back to church so that we can just come up and like worship the Lord. Like, now we actually know what worship is. And I was like, that's pretty cool to be a part of, so. That's good.
So good. That's just a little insight to our 4 days there. But yeah, God did so much over that camp. But yeah, like I think for a lot of our like youth, it's that, that empowering and then that sending out. Yeah. And so I think, even for us as a church, right, like we still have that same Holy Spirit that outworks in all of us. And although we got to, really sit away from distraction for 4 days, which I think really helps, it's like, wow, we actually got to give God all of that time. The same goes for us, like however much time we have, right? Like we can still meet with God's presence and his spirit in such powerful ways. So what I wanted to do is we're going to go into communion, but after that, like some of us leaders are going to be up the back, and if you also feel led to be there, I just want us to, come before each other and allow each other to experience that same prayer over each other, right? Prayer was something so powerful, and even in Ephesians 6, like at the end of the armor of God, right, it says, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep praying for all the Lord's people, right? So we would love to do that for you guys, is to pray for you. If you need breakthrough, right, that we experience on camp, God is the God of breakthrough, right? And so, we'll have us up there, maybe if some other people, our prayer women warriors, and some other people as well could be up the back. If you would like prayer over something, don't wait. Come and get it today. It's for free. So, and God welcomes us all in, no matter where we've been, no matter what we've gone through, what sin we've had, right? It's like, that's the beautiful part of God, is he welcomes us right back in. So yeah, go take communion, and then let's pray with each other. Yeah. Okay.